Team USA. You know they've got Kevin Durant and Damian Lillard. When today started, they had 6 players. BEAL out. Love out. Plenty more, not sure. Can Trae Young get a spot on this team? And since it is the national squad, maybe these guys are available. Let's go.
Don't most Americans think they can win a gold with 6 players?
Yes, that's a yes.
The 2 most pivotal words in the English language. Game 5 tomorrow. Phoenix. Here's Monty Williams' pump up.
Ever since I've been here, we talked about everything you want is on the other side of hard. This is hard. This is freaking hard. So you got to stick together. That's the deal. All right, let's bring it in. Come on, guys.
Oh, I'm going to run through a wall here to the other side of hard. Israel Gutierrez, start off with you. What has this series been most about so far?
Dario Saric there was the Alonzo Mourning gif, by the way. I think this series has been about 2 things. One, it's been about basically Milwaukee's defense, first of all, figuring out how to slow down Chris Paul in that pick and roll and therefore getting a little DeAndre Ayton a little bit out of his game as well. And if you look at the Phoenix Suns' offensive rating numbers, the first 2 games compared to the second 2 games, they've done a great job of that. And, you know, with great defense comes rebounding. With rebounding comes fast break points, which they led 15-0 in this previous game. But with that comes a little bit less pressure on the offensive end. However, they still need to score. So that second part about this is, who is going to provide Giannis with the help? It's either going to be Chris Middleton like it was in the last game. It's going to be Drew Holiday perhaps like it was in Game 3. Somebody else has to complement him in the scoring department because we know that's where Giannis has his shortcomings in the half court. But that to me has basically been what this is, as it has been for the Bucks throughout the playoffs. Figure out your team. Once you do that, finish them off, and in this case, they'd win a championship.
So just that, just figure out your team. That's what this series has been. So you gave every answer in the book about what this series has been about so far. Sarah Spain, can you whittle it down to one thing?
One thing is adjustments, which is kind of shocking considering it's been a criticism of Coach Bud and the Bucks for a long time. But they start out getting killed by the pick and roll. They adjust. They drop their big man and do some switching. They get killed by the drive and kick to the corner threes. They start preventing those. They slow down Chris Paul and Ayton together, who were killing him early on. They force Chris Paul into uncharacteristic mistakes. And to Izzy's point, all of that decision-making on the defensive end and deciding how they want to guard a team that is chock full of effective guards has helped them on the boards, has helped them in transition, has allowed them to commit fewer turnovers. And despite bad jump shooting, where they any given night are looking at Holiday and saying, thanks for the defense, would you provide a little O sometime? It doesn't matter as much because they're being able to beat them in so many other spaces. And of course, Giannis in every single game is showing up.
Glenn Yates, join the conversation.
I'll whittle it down to one thing for you, Tony. The number 17. 17 turnovers, 17 offensive rebounds given up in the last game. That's not going to happen when they go back home. Chris Paul talked about it after the game. He said, that's on me. And you can say what you want. Home court advantage, in my opinion, is the most major factor with 2 teams with this little finals experience and playoff in general in this series. And I think it's going to change when they get back to the Valley.
June Lee.
I'm going to go with the Bucks supporting cast because at their best, when Chris Middleton is on, I take them over the Suns. But game to game, in terms of consistency, I'd probably go with that Suns crew. Chris Middleton, when he shoots 45% or better, the Bucks have been 11-1 in the playoffs. When he shoots worse than that, the Bucks are 3-6. So I think it's going to depend on whether or not that Bucks secondary cast shows up for this team.
There's that flow chart that's floating around social media about Chris Middleton. Have you seen it before? It's like Chris Middleton has a great game, is an all-star, then struggles from the field, then gets over-criticized, then has a bounce-back game. He's thought to be underrated, then has a great game, and then repeat the cycle again. Israel, who'd you rather be in this series going into tomorrow's Game 5?
I mean, call me prisoner of the moment, but I'd rather be the Bucks, mostly because of what they figured out in terms of what is necessary to win. And if you look at against Chris Paul, that's 3 games now where he's basically been turning the ball over. It's not just he had the one game, he's got to figure it out. He's had a couple of games where he's had to, really navigate this defense. And without Devin Booker providing something, without DeAndre Ayton providing something, it's going to be a lot of pressure on him. So yeah, I'd rather be the Bucks.
Spain?
Is you're a prisoner of the moment. Not because of that take. You just asked us to call you that, so I'm just doing what you asked me to. I think it's the most turnovers of the course of 3 postseason games for Chris Paul since 2012. I do think it's more likely that we're seeing what the Bucks can do against the Suns with these adjustments, so I'd rather be the Bucks going forward. Home court is going to help the Suns, but the Bucks are a better team if they get enough contributions from people outside Giannis.
The Suns had a better home record this season than the Bucks, and the Suns have 2 more games at home.
June Lee.
I'm going to take the Suns. I think the home court advantage is a big deal, and that I think is a really big if that Sarah mentions is whether or not that Bucks secondary unit shows up.
All right, we've been horned. We'll move on. Let's talk about Team USA. I said 6 players was what they had going into today. They've added 2 more. Spurs guard Keldon Johnson and JaVale McGee now with Team USA. That replaces Bradley Beal and Kevin Love. Olympic play starts in 9 days, and somehow Trae Young still isn't on this team. He's noticed. I think everybody's noticed, but Team USA hasn't made the move to bring Trae Young and Clinton. Are these the right moves, talking about Johnson, McGee, to make right now? Or are you going to tell me no move matters because they have Durant, Lillard, and they're going to be fine, yada, yada, yada?
No, I like these moves for 2 reasons. Number 1, size has been a factor. We saw that against Nigeria, and we certainly saw it against Australia. But number 2, non-stars who can adjust to the FIBA level of refereeing. I think that's a real factor here. These dudes are here to play, and they're not just here to score buckets. I really like the McGee addition. I'm not just saying that because the guy's a former Wizard who I used to love. This guy brings an element of grit to the game that I think this team needs, and I absolutely think that that's a smart move for sure.
So what you said there, you didn't acknowledge Trae Young there, but you said guys out there to get buckets. You don't think Trae Young fits on Team USA?
I didn't say that. Trae Young absolutely fits on Team USA, but what this team needs right now to fit the problems that have, come as a result of these specific losses so far, particularly in the exhibitions, that's where JaVale McGee adds a something.
June Lee?
I would really love to see Trae Young on this Olympic team, especially given how electric he's been this year. It's also good that JaVale's on this team because we might get some international Olympic memes out of this, him doing something at the international stage that is worthy of an internet viral moment. That's what I'm personally most looking forward to with JaVale on this team. But Clinton's right. This team needs size, and JaVale definitely provides that.
Israel, here's a team that lost 2 exhibition games this week after losing 2 exhibition games, in the last 16 years, I think it was. And the move is Keldon Johnson. The move is JaVale McGee. And Trae Young's just sitting there after one of the greatest postseasons of all time. Are they making the right moves here?
It doesn't. Team USA doesn't need anything other than practice time, right? It doesn't. It's not like the rest of the world is saying, "Well, Team USA really lacking talent now that Bradley Beal's not there." No, Keldon Johnson's not going to play. Okay, JaVale McGee will probably play some, and frankly, it's the type of big that they can utilize there, right? Because it's a guy that, hey, if they switch, you just give him the ball down low, and he will, overconfident JaVale McGee go down there and try to put up a layup, and that's basically what the international teams do to the U.S. a lot of the time. So that's fine. I do think they need a little bit of size, but in terms of talent, they have enough talent. So yes, would Trae Young have been a good look on this team? Would have been from the very beginning, but adding him now probably seems a little awkward. He hasn't played in a while.
Says he wants to play. He hasn't played in some time. I never understood this. We need Brooke Lopez has been linked to this team now as well. I saw Woj write the report today that Team USA is considering Brooke Lopez, along with, of course, Middleton's coming, and who else? Devin Booker is coming from the NBA Finals. They're considering Brooke Lopez because he's already in game shape. And I thought to myself, and I'll bring you in here, Sarah, do we need guys that are absolutely in game shape at this moment, or do we need the best players?
It's a little of both. I mean, there's players that are out of the country. There's players that are in the middle of a rehab that they can't interrupt, and a long-form, multi-week situation that they weren't planning on playing at the international level. I think it's a little more complicated than just JaVale McGee and Keldon Johnson are the best guys left. Johnson's been training with this team every day. He's familiar with the coach and the team, so even if he doesn't play that much, he's a great guy to have in the huddle and working with them throughout the tournament. JaVale McGee gets a lot of flack, but he's a 3-time champion. Also, cool story, his mom Pamela was a gold medalist with the U.S. women's team in 1984. Kind of love that storyline. I just think we needed size and we need a defense, and it's not as simple as just saying go grab another great player. It's what has this team shown you in these friendlies and losing these friendlies that they need, and it's not another sharpshooting guard.
Gutierrez, last word.
Yeah, I agree with Sarah. Again, while it would be nice to have Trae Young there, a guy that can just overcome the lack of practice time because he is that type of transcendent talent, yes. But again, do we actually need that? No, I'd say no. And given that they don't know the answers to what, Trae Young technically didn't say it, Isaiah Thomas said it, but that Trae Young really is in game shape, I mean, we don't really know this. So I'm, again, fine with the decision. And yeah, that's what they needed.
You know, when I made the lineup for today's show, I went out and I got the All-Stars. I went out and got the guys who had great postseason, scintillating players who could pull up from 35 feet. That's what I did. But maybe I should have gotten some size and guys who are in game shape who know the system. Maybe that's what I should have done. Let's take a break right here. Buy or sell us on the other side in 2 minutes. Tom Brady played the whole season with a torn MCL. 50 touchdowns, the Super Bowl, torn MCL all year. The Buccaneers never disclosed this. Only hearing about it now because the NFL's in-house communications mentioned it, but then they said, we're not commenting on it. In the past, the league has punished teams for not reporting injuries. Clinton, are you more impressed with Brady or less impressed with the Bucs for not reporting it?
I'm less impressed with the Bucs and the NFL. This is alarming on a lot of levels. The number one being, if you can hide an MCL, why wouldn't you hide a concussion? The number two being, if you're Tom Brady, is that part of the reason why this was allowed to be done? I don't like the idea of this, considering this league's history when it comes to brain injuries, never mind any other one.
Sarah Speen.
Yeah, it's also difficult now because gambling is a partner of yours. And I believe people making bets on some of these games are going to want to feel like they have the most information and the information that you've promised them. That's going to be an issue for the league. Also, it's going to be an issue for Chicago that Tom Brady won a Super Bowl with a sprained MCL. We have to start talking about Cutler in the NFC Championship
this
for
is not
another.
about Jay Cutler. Go ahead. That should be a banned word for anyone from Chicago. Mr. Gutierrez, how about you?
I mean, this man left the greatest NFL coach of all time, won a Super Bowl in Tampa in the year of the pandemic with all these hurdles already there, didn't have to be on the injury report, which is something I'm sure he wanted, and now gets win because he looks like a superhero for doing it on a torn MCL. I mean, can the guy ever
Explain that middle part to me. Didn't have to be on the injury report. When I hear he has a torn MCL and it's not on the injury report, I think the team is trying to protect him from the opponent hearing, oh, let's go at his legs.
I think it benefits him roughly because the team can't say, hey, if we just throw the house at him, we know he can't move. He's already 40. Now he has 40 plus, already has a torn MCL. Maybe it would adjust the game plan. It probably
What do you think of Brady and the torn MCL and the Buccaneers never reporting it?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is emblematic of the shifting power dynamic towards the players, even in the NFL. I mean, when Brady was with the Patriots, he had that ankle injury that was on the injury report week after week after week. But I don't think this panel has acknowledged like how incredible it is that that man was able to, at his age, to win a Super Bowl despite having a torn MCL. Like that by itself, regardless of kind of the meta context, is like still a pretty incredible feat.
Oh, he doesn't run, so you never saw it in his play, but you did see it during the boat parade when he was getting off the boat and he was really wobbly. That was the torn MCL.
Yeah. Knee stability.
Buy or sell two, Bryson DeChambeau versus his driver. He sprayed it all over the place yesterday at the British Open. He blamed Cobra, the club maker. Cobra hissed back at him hard. DeChambeau didn't apologize, said his frustration boiled over and he sucked, not the equipment. But today, he didn't use his Cobra driver on that first tee, used irons more frequently, made more fairways today, and he finished +1 for the 2 rounds just inside the cut line at the Open. Israel, who you got, Bryson or Cobra?
Well, I'm Team Cobra here. Bryson's got to be very careful here not to make everybody dislike him, right? When you start blaming your equipment, you might even lose fans of yours like me. However, if this is what sort of making a public mess of this, what makes him sort of reel it in a little bit and maybe not hit driver or try to go, ham off of every tee, maybe this helps and maybe this makes him a better golfer as a result. Who knows?
June.
This reminds me of when I play video games and I get demolished by my friends in 2K and FIFA and I'm blaming the controller. Like, it's just not a productive thing. He needs to look inward and gain a little bit more self-awareness. Like, I would go to some therapy to figure out what is happening there. Like, blaming everyone but yourself, blaming your driver is not going to help you get better in this situation.
I would have loved to see you use that reference on yesterday's show with Bob Ryan and Woody Page, the FIFA controller. Yeah. Yates, how about you?
They call it a rage quit. But listen, in a non-team sport, in a major, in which you're dealing with a major rival, this is about as good as the drama gets in anything not involve the golf shots. I'm totally fine with this. If this is the reason why I'm tuned in to watch some meathead crush the ball, yes, I love this kind of stuff. This is what golf is fun for.
In Bob Ryan parlance, a good craftsman never blames his
That's right,
tools.
Sarah. You're so right there.
Back in the day. I'm Team Cobra on this. I like how they told him he shouldn't have said what he said, but they still support him. And I think he's been a partner of theirs for a long time now and has had a lot of clubs made specifically for him. If he's going to keep asking for clubs for him, find one that works or don't blame it. You're in charge of what club you use.
And I think you're all going to get some bonus points now for Brooks Koepka, who after his round was talking about how well he hit driver, and also that he was going to drive out of the course
love
today.
that.
Points for everybody for Brooks Koepka. Buy or sell 3, Liz Cambage. It was a shocking report that came out last night that Team Australia was considering removing her from the Olympic roster because of what was called a series of alleged incidents, including an altercation in the exhibition game versus Nigeria this week. And we had just seen Cambage on the sidelines of the All-Star game eating popcorn and having a great time. But while the dust of that settled, Cambage then posting she's pulling herself out of the Olympics and withdrawing, citing mental health reasons. Quote, I'm a long way from where I want and need to be, and a past month that's including anxiety attacks over the Olympic bubble, and she said relying on daily medication to control anxiety is not the place she wants to be in her life. Sarah Spain, how do you consider it all?
Well, I first would say to those critics, especially from her own country of Australia, saying that she's making it more difficult for people with real mental health issues by blaming that instead of acknowledging that the team might kick her off. She has been vocal about this. You might recall her Players Tribune story. She acknowledged her first attempt at sobriety came at age 18. She was on suicide watch in 2016. She's had DNPs because of panic attacks. She has talked about this a lot, and whatever mental health looks like at any given moment is not on us to judge how that manifests in the behavior. That might be the reason for her being removed from the team if she was in fact removed and just preemptively made this statement. Either way, I think we're sensitive to it and empathetic while also understanding it's much more complicated than her just taking herself out.
Israel Gutierrez.
Right, and I'll also just add to that, just addressing it initially does not mean that she has solved the issue. She is clearly working through things. If she is still taking medication for anxiety, for example, then she still has things that she is working through. And if that comes with different levels of self-awareness or different levels of anxiety or stress because she is a growing figure, at least in this country, because she is once again representing Australia in the Olympics, then maybe it's just all come to a head at an unfortunate time for her and her team.
June.
Yeah, and to take a step back, as the spotlight on the WNBA grows, the probability of these kinds of stories popping up more grows as well. So I have to give a lot of props to Liz Cambage for being willing to speak about her dealings with depression and anxiety in the first place. That's not an easy thing to do.
Clinton Yates.
Liz Cambage is an international superstar who has represented her country and the Opals tremendously over the course of her career. If a woman of color is not ready to walk into the Olympics and deal with the fishbowl that is, I don't have a problem with it.
Sarah Spain, thank you for your words today and for also coming up with the new band word, the regional band word. I think we might see more of that coming up. June Lee as well. Have a great weekend. Clinton Yates, Israel Gutierrez, showdown in 2 minutes. The showdown, leg day, here we go. Photo of Saquon Barkley here. And of course now, since we showed Saquon Barkley's legs, working out with the Giants, here's a video of A.J. Dillon with a package.
Look at
this in there.
those!
What is this?
Look at those!
Okay, all right. So we're talking about legs here, but let's talk about Saquon Barkley's legs and A.J. Dillon's legs. Whose legs are kicking it? Clinton Yates, go to you. Guys are killing me.
It's got to be Saquon Barkley. This is not just thighs. This is not just drumsticks. This is an entire family meal of meat. Come on now, let's get a discount. What a job.
Israel.
This makes me so nervous, though. It makes me kind of want to skip leg days on occasion because all that muscle, all that size can't protect that tiny tendon. And so, is it really worth it?
And you guys are making fun of me for wearing leather pants out at the Sports
we like
Humanitarian Awards. Walk a mile in my pants and get back to me. Point, Clinton Yates. We'll move on. Showdown 2. Jason Dominguez, one of the great prospects of baseball in the Yankee system. And Israel, I would like you to grade his slide on this triple here, if it is even a slide.
As someone who has never executed a baseball slide, that is exactly what my mind thinks when I'm running toward a base. Hey, this isn't really going to work out this way, is it? It's probably going to, and that's what would happen. So that's why I don't slide that way.
I'm glad you came to the delegation that you needed to. There's one grade for this slide. A+. You know why? Safe, kiddos. It worked.
It worked. I mean, he's 18 or 19. He's healthy at least. Thank goodness for him. That's how they slot in Mars, maybe, Clinton, because he's the Martian.
He's a Martian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Clinton Yates, 30 seconds of FaceTime.
I'd like to take this time to address that at Denver at the All-Star game, a couple of players came away that were tested positive for COVID-19. It was a very good and nice moment at the time, but I felt compelled enough because of the actual physical camaraderie to come home and get tested. I implore everyone who was there. We had a great time. We got together. It was the Midsummer Classic that we needed, but please, please be safe and make sure that you are not a part of the problem, and please be a part of the solution. That's not just good for you. That's not just good for baseball. That's good for all of us.
Thank you, Clinton Yates. All right, we're just about done here. Sarah, you have to tell everybody what you told us right before we started the show. You were at brunch this morning, and something fell from the sky and hit you. What was it?
It was a piece of Lunchables ham. I blame a squirrel or a bird, but it may just be an unexplained phenomenon.
Ham and cheese. Here you go. Here's some cheese.